Well, good afternoon to you. It's 5:06 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, David Strom joins us from Hot Air. It's Joe Biden's 81st birthday. David has a present for him, which is analysis. It's coming. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. A lot going on in the world. There's a bit of a sleeper story as far as I'm concerned. I'm not usually watching Univision, but apparently they did an interview with Donald Trump, the former and possibly the next president of the United States. And the Washington Post has a variety of headlines on this. They're very worked up. They do not like, the left is furious, and the corporate media are furious that Trump did this Univision interview because Univision didn't try to hurt him for once. They didn't make it into an anti-Trump fest. And so as a result, the media are furious. Here's the Washington Post headline from just a few days ago, 6 days ago. Washington Post, Univision, the Spanish language news giant, shifts its approach to Trump. They say when Donald Trump ran for re-election in 2020, his campaign called Univision, the nation's most influential Spanish language network, quote, a leftist propaganda machine and a mouthpiece of the Democrat Party, end quote. Well, yeah, that's what it's been for a long time. We shall treat them accordingly, top advisors promised. 3 years later, Trump is treating Univision and its new corporate owners like long-lost friends. He hosted a trio of its executives at Mar-a-Lago last week during an hour-long Univision interview that was notable for its gracious tone, starting with a question about how well he is doing among Latino voters in early general election polling. That's also true. You know, Trump has improved his standing among Latino voters and, in fact, has improved the Republican Party's standing among Latino voters dramatically, especially, you know, hardworking Latinos who don't like their lives under Biden are giving Trump another look. And the end result is that we are now approaching the Latino vote, although, again, it's not a monolith. There's like so many different types of people wrapped up in the so-called Latino vote. But to the extent that it's measured by pollsters, it's now a bit of a coin toss. Still majority, slightly, Democrat. But Republicans are very much in the game for the broad Latino vote. And that is thanks in no small part to Donald Trump. Trump has increased his vote share and support among Hispanic voters dramatically. And this is freaking the left out. They are scared to death about this because they had made racial assumptions about Hispanic voters years ago. They built a political party around it, and they're suddenly discovering that it's not exactly what they thought it was going to be. They were super excited. Remember, they were so excited for, what was the phrase? Minority, majority, country, majority, minority, whatever. The idea is like white people are going to be a minority in this country, and that's going to be a great day for America. What? You demented racist? Why would you talk like that? Why would you even think like that? It's bigoted. And so now they're freaking out that on Univision, that executives apparently at the network have just started to realize, like, look, where's our audience on this? Our audience kind of likes Trump. So what are we going to do? What would a business do in the face of that? Would they keep their anti-Trump campaign going on? Well, not if they care about their bottom line. They shouldn't do that. No. In fact, if they want to be a good Spanish language network, what they should really do is just provide honest insights into what's actually going on in the world in the Spanish language, if that's what you want to do. But don't unnecessarily antagonize a guy that your audience likes. You think he did something wrong? Okay, ask him about it. Assess it. Do a report on it. It's perfectly fine. But that's not what Univision had been doing. Univision was CNN en Español. That's what they were doing. It was a completely different thing. So Trump has apparently been courting Univision a bit. Washington Post is angry about this. Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, a friend of one of the executives, helped arrange the interview and was also in the room, according to multiple people familiar with the event. Quote, all you have to do is look at the owners of Univision. They're unbelievable entrepreneurial people, and they like me, Trump said in response to the question about Latino voters. All right, so that was a piece for a couple days ago. Then additionally, another piece came out. The Washington Post couldn't just write one piece about that. How many pieces did they write on the pro-Israel rally here in Washington? You know, the hometown newspaper. How many pieces did they, was it one in the Metro section? They wrote multiple pieces about how Donald Trump is getting treated too well by Univision. I swear to you, here's the next piece. This is from now 2 days ago. Latino backlash grows over Donald Trump's friendly Univision interview. Subheadline, members of Congress plan to ask for a meeting with a company executive as a famous actor, a Univision founder, and Latino rights advocacy groups speak out. Oh, so now you see what's happening? So now you have members of Congress who want to take Univision by the throat, and they say, you better back off on this, pro-Trump tilt you're taking. The nation's largest Spanish-language media company, Univision, faced growing backlash Friday for its handling of a recent interview with former President Donald Trump as major Latino advocacy groups delivered a letter of protest to the network's executives. I'm going to tell you right now, before we even get to the major Latino groups, these are just Democrats. They dress it up in race, but it's always these are just Democrat hatchet organizations. And then they call themselves something benign. Oh, the Latino Organization for Progress. It's just a Democrat group. That's all. You understand that? They sent a letter of protest to the network's executives in the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, prepared to request a meeting with the network. Actor and comedian John Leguizamo, I can always stumble over that name, who recently took a turn as host of Comedy Central's The Daily Show, also posted a video on Instagram on Thursday night calling for a boycott of the network. Oh, is that right? You can see why they didn't choose him to be the permanent host. He's like hectoring news organizations. How dare you have an interview with Trump? He's calling for a boycott of the network until it stopped its rejection of Biden ads, some of which were canceled just before the Trump interview aired. I'm asking for all my brothers and sisters who are actors, artists, politicians, activists to not go on Univision, he said in a message in English and Spanish. So everyone's unhappy with Univision. Everybody's on the left. They're unhappy with Univision. And for more evidence of this, the smartest person on this subject on the entire left is a woman by the name of Ana Navarro. Here she is on The View, the genius that is Ana Navarro, expressing her ideas in a very sophisticated and sober way.
Univision, as you said, is the giant in Spanish news. And in Spanish news, there's a ton of misinformation in our community newspapers, in our radio stations. This is the place where Latinos, Spanish-speaking Latinos...
Okay, when she says there's disinformation for Latinos, for Hispanics, what she really is saying, and this is, remember, Ana Navarro is supposed to be, wasn't she at one point pretending to be a conservative strategist or something? So what she's saying is that there are too many Hispanic media outlets that openly discuss things that conservatives agree with. That's what she's saying. Especially down in places like Miami, where they have radio networks that are either openly conservative or at least open-minded about conservative issues. They hate that. We've talked to Mercedes Schlapp about this particular thing here on this program. She's given us a great rundown of all of this. So Ana Navarro is literally making stuff up right now. It's disinformation. It's in the Latino community. Too many Latinos are being misled.
And in Spanish news, there's a ton of misinformation in our community newspapers, in our radio stations. This is the place where Latinos, Spanish-speaking Latinos go to get informed, to form educated opinions, to get engaged. They help people get out to... They've been really great corporate citizens and community citizens. They have a tremendous co-anchor named Jorge Ramos, who's been there for decades.
Barf. Barf in Spanish. Whatever Spanish for barf is, that's what I just said. So Jorge Ramos, who is a hair-on-fire left-winger, isn't he a dual citizen, that guy? I think he's a Mexican and an American citizen. He's trying to have it both ways. He's a lunatic. He's a left-wing lunatic. So, of course, the fake conservative consultant, or whatever she calls herself, is saying Jorge Ramos is the best thing about Univision?
They have a tremendous co-anchor named Jorge Ramos, who's been there for decades. And they've got great credibility.
Amazing. Was that Sonny? So he's amazing. They're like gushing over this guy. It's all politics to these people.
Many a strong man, many a corrupt person, leader, squirm under the questioning of Jorge Ramos. But they didn't have Jorge Ramos do this interview. No. They had a guy named Enrique Acevedo, who's supposedly a good journalist. I don't know him. But he sat there like if he was interviewing a panda.
You know who I'd like to see interview Trump? Ana Navarro. I'd love to see Ana Navarro actually conduct an interview with Trump. It'd be the funniest thing you've ever seen. It would be just spectacular. It really would. Here she is urging Univision viewers to force the network to become more left-wing.
This is what I would say to Univision viewers. Use your voice. Use your remote controls. Use your purchasing power with advertisers. If you've got questions, let them know.
This is boycott. So she's advocating for a boycott for Spanish language media. Now, is that a good idea? Is it so? The same left, and let's knock off the playing pretend. She's not actually a conservative consultant or whatever she calls herself. She's a lefty. And so, is this a good idea? So you're going to hurt Hispanic journalists? That's your plan? You're going to hurt Hispanic advertisers, Latino advertisers who are trying to reach Hispanic Americans. You're going to hurt all of those people? Your plan, because you hate Trump that much, because you're that upset that some other view might make it through to Spanish-speaking Americans, that you're going to hurt them and their well-being. Is this right? This is the same. I mean, this is like the left does this all the time. What did they do to Atlanta with the All-Star game? We were just talking about it this past week. Atlanta gets the All-Star game now, and everybody thinks it should just go away. It's not a problem anymore. What? I thought Georgia adopted voting laws that were hurting black people. I thought that's why you pulled the All-Star game out of Atlanta. And guess who? Guess the only organization to hurt black people in that entire saga was Major League Baseball. The only organization to hurt black people. Major League Baseball. So here you have Anna Navarro advocating for pain and suffering for Hispanic Americans because she's that upset that Donald Trump got a fair hearing on Univision. Following this? Same thing. Black Lives Matter. Same deal. Same deal. We painted it on our street here in Washington, D.C. We renamed the entire plaza out in front of the White House. We paid the tithe. So what did that do? Oh, things are much more deadly and dangerous now for black people. How'd that happen? How did that happen? Black Lives Matter stole all of the money, bought mansions, and said screw you to every single company and person who gave out of their own bank account to that organization with an expectation that life would be better. These are scams. They're scams. They're left-wing scams. So Anna Navarro is now urging, alongside this other dope, John Leguizamo, you got to boycott Univision. You have to take a Hispanic company and you need to hurt it because of Trump, because they talked to Trump, because they interviewed him. Does anyone else think this is insane?
Let them know. If you are disappointed and troubled, let them know. Because Univision has held people accountable. It is time for us Latinos to hold Univision accountable.
What a scam. What a complete scam. And so this is actually, you know what's funny? This story was not on my radar until I found out about this Anna Navarro clip. So in that way, she did a public service today. She definitely put it in front of me. I was like, these view clips, I got to be honest, they're irresistible. I don't know. They're like in the Odyssey, Odysseus is drifting past the sirens. They have to tie him to the mast in order to keep him away. And I'm telling you, they're my sirens. I can't stay away. I mean, they don't look anything like the sirens, I would assume. But I can't resist a good view clip. And Anna Navarro going off on Univision. And I said, what is she complaining about? And then you look back and you're like, Univision literally just gave Trump a fair interview. And now they're going gook. They're going completely crazy. Loco. They're going loco today. And the Washington Post, multiple pieces. How dare Univision interview Trump in this way? Why didn't Jorge Ramos do it? The man who would he probably did climb over broken glass to vote for Hillary and Joe Biden. Like, stop being ridiculous. Stop being ridiculous. But that's what we get. We got a lot of ridiculousness, especially from The View. So again, thank you to Anna Navarro for bringing this story to our attention. Excellent work this week. It's 5:21 now. All right, let's go to the phones. Sam in Alexandria is calling in now. Sam, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show. Hello.
Hey, almost happy Thanksgiving, Vince. How are you doing?
Indeed. I'm doing so great, Sam. How are you?
I'm doing well. I always find these kind of clips hilarious because I'm like, hold on. I thought that was the party and the philosophy of diversity and inclusion and thought and things of that nature. And everything I hear is the total opposite. You don't have any First Amendment. You don't have any freedom of expression, freedom of speech. You know, why don't we have these battles of philosophy and thought in the open? And if you disagree with it, let's hear your point.
For sure.
But you never hear that.
Have you noticed they're not trying to make a better argument? They're just trying to shut down the ability to argue at all. They're trying to intercept his ability to speak. That is Trump's ability to speak to Spanish-speaking Americans, and rather than just engage in an actual debate, because they know they'll lose on the merits. They know they'll lose, so they have to rig the whole game, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. And it's interesting because the businessman that he is. What my philosophy and my thought is, particularly when I hear the whole word of systemic racism, is like, hold on. In this day and age, if I have a company and I engage in any type of racism, I'm done. I want the best there is out there. I don't care if you're a Martian from Mars.
Yes.
If you can perform and put my company over the top, I don't give two about what the color of your skin is or anything else.
True. That's true, Sam. But there's a carve out. The only systemic racism that's permitted is anti-white, anti-Asian, anti-Jewish, anti-Christian. I think I could keep actually building on this list. So in other words, there is systemic racism for sure, but it's being perpetuated by the left.
Yeah, thank you very much. And by the way, Asian is white approximate. I was thinking about that today. I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's actually a word.
I know.
So you're close enough. You're close enough to get stung by that.
So isn't it so crazy? It's one of the craziest things ever, and we should have never let this happen. But yet here we are. Sam, thank you. I really appreciate the call as always. Please have a great Thanksgiving. All right, coming up, David Strom will be with us from Hot Air. We will mark Joe Biden's 81st birthday. The big turkey pardon today, and there were 3 turkeys present. 2 of them were birds.
This is attorney James Collins from Legally Speaking every Saturday morning at 9 here on WMAL, and we're bringing back our live estate planning seminar. We'll talk about new things like how the Secure Act 2 affects your plan. We'll talk about important things like how to protect your money from estate and inheritance taxes, how to avoid probate, and how to keep your money in your family and protect your beneficiaries from lawsuits, bankruptcy, divorce, the in-laws, maybe even protect them from themselves. Join us in Arlington at the Holiday Inn Ballston on Tuesday, November 28th, or in Columbia at the Doubletree Hotel on Thursday, November 30th. With sessions at 1:30 and 7 p.m. each day, we're waiving tuition for radio listeners. So register online at thecollinsfirm.com. That's thecollinsfirm.com. Or you can call 877-PLAN-NOW. That's 877-PLAN-NOW. And if you're near Arlington or Columbia, keep your eye in the mail for your special invitation. And we'll look forward to seeing you there.
Good afternoon to you. 5:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. You can join us on this Thanksgiving week at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL.
How is the president planning to mark his birthday? I ask, as he mentioned it during the turkey party. It looks like he's got some family here. We're going to have like a party or a dinner.
So he's gonna do what they normally do, how they celebrate the president's birthday. There's a tradition, which they're going to keep to that tradition, which is they'll be able to celebrate the president's birthday as a family together in Nantucket.
Oh wow, what a unique tradition! Well, the Nantucket part's unique. They celebrate as a family. That's the tradition.
Later this week, and certainly we'll do that with coconut cake, which is something that they traditionally do.
Riveting. Coconut cake. It's awful taste. For your birthday? I mean, I'll eat some coconut cake, but for your birthday, that's your preference? Come on now. Not Carvel ice cream cake? The chocolate crunch is fantastic. How could you miss out on that? The guy loves ice cream. What? Is even that a lie? In case you're wondering how old he is, here's an RNC supercut of some of his finest moments in his advanced years.
Anyway.
Well said.
The best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to.
Inspiring.
Anyway, from Charlotte, another line going from in Florida down to Tampa of Putin's kleptocracy. Yeah. And Joan Shingang, I'm going to pronounce it, Shanga.
Yep.
$159 billion led. America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
David Strom's an associate editor over at Hot Air and joins us now. David, why do people think that Joe Biden's old?
Well, he is 81, so that's our first data point. And the fact is that he sounds, and I say this in the kindest way that I can, he sounds very much like my mother-in-law did in her last year or so. And I think we have all experienced this now with family members. It's certainly not something that we would normally make fun of, but he's just not quite all there. And it's sad.
Yeah, I mean, what options are we left with? The guy is the president of the United States. He deserves all the scrutiny in the world. And by the way, his ability to actually do the job is kind of essential. And he's got family around him who are not intervening. So in what you just described, in the case of, say, your mother-in-law or literally anybody else who's dealing with an elderly relative, typically what happens is the people around them who love them intervene to help them. That's not what's happening here. Instead, they're letting this ridiculous farce continue.
Yeah, and it really does at this point look like elder abuse. And I don't have any, I don't want to sound fake compassionate about Joe Biden because I think he has been a horrible president and has actually been bad at public policy the entire time he's been in there. So even if he were all there, he'd be a terrible president. But I mean, let's face it, he does not have the stamina at the very least. And I don't think he has the mental capacity to do the job. I mean, remember Hillary Clinton's 3 a.m. phone call? I mean, does anybody think that Joe Biden is in a position to make the tough calls when they need to be made?
No.
Or for that matter, that he's making them now. I don't think anyone really believes that he's making these decisions.
No, not at all. In fact, I'm reminded of, Jen Psaki's riff about Biden. She said this. Remember this? It was just from a year ago.
Now, it's important to note, President Biden does nothing at 9 a.m. He is a night owl. So the fact that he is doing this at 9 a.m. anyway speaks to how vital the White House recognizes it is for him to have his voice out there, conveying that to the American public.
The former White House press secretary admitting that the president of the United States can't even be out doing public functions by 9 a.m. in the morning, David.
Well, and they often call a lid, between noon and 4. Which means that the president is pretty much basically unavailable. So how many hours a day can he actually put in? And I think the answer is functionally very, none. It was really embarrassing.
Yes.
To see him next to President Xi Jinping. I mean, you couldn't have had a more stark contrast between the two people. And it's not that Xi is a young man. It's just that Joe Biden shuffled. When you've got people who have to turn him around and point him in the proper direction, it's really time that he shuffle off the stage.
David, do you find it insulting that the White House keeps claiming that he's got more energy than anybody in the White House? Isn't that how North Korean can we get, do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, they gaslight us on literally everything. I mean, they tell us that this is the best economy that we've ever seen. They tell us that Islamophobia is as big a problem as anti-Semitism. I mean, it's like they're congenital liars. So I'm no more insulted by this than the fact that not Jen Psaki, Karine Jean-Pierre got up today and was explaining how on this Trans Day of Remembrance, we need to, be deeply worried about the fact that 26 people were murdered last year, which is 1/7 of the number of people that got hit by lightning.
Right. Yeah, this is so stupid. What is, just to go into this for just a moment, apparently today is something that the left has branded the Trans Day of Remembrance, which is remarkable because, this issue just popped up overnight. So why would we remember it? It's like so Orwellian, the whole thing. And anyone who's looked at the data on this particular question has rendered the following observation, which is that the general population dies from homicide at a higher rate than anyone who identifies as transgender. The whole thing is predicated on nonsense.
5 times the rate. Children have twice the murder victim rate than transgender people do, using the White House's own numbers. So I don't want to downplay any murder. Anybody getting murdered, any innocent person getting murdered is a tragedy. But the fact that a young Black teenager in Chicago is about 50 times more likely to get murdered than a transgender person tells me that maybe their priorities are a bit off.
Yeah, big time. And one last thing on this. There's an old colleague of mine who also worked for Tucker Carlson when he was at Fox. His name is Gregory. He posts today that one of the 26 so-called transgender Americans who were killed this year is someone called Devani Jeray Johnson. And they tried to murder a security guard with a fire extinguisher and a screwdriver. This is the write-up. Johnson's alleged killer, a security guard at the supermarket Ralph's, claims that Johnson attacked him with a fire extinguisher and a screwdriver. According to initial news reports in an LAPD statement, which didn't name or otherwise identify Johnson, the guard shot her once in the upper body, after which she died at a nearby hospital. So apparently this person died in self-defense. The Human Rights Campaign, which puts this whole list together, David, the list of the 26 transgender people were killed, didn't mention the attempted murder by the person who ends up on the list as the victim.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to sound like I'm slandering, any particular transgender person, but a number of, how do I put this? At least some of these people were in a high-risk profession.
Sure.
And you know what I'm referring to.
Yeah, you can say sex, prostitution.
Yeah, prostitution. And
yes.
So they are in a position where their chances of getting murdered are higher than average, and yet somehow, statistically speaking, the number of transgender people who actually get murdered is, as I said, 1/5 that of the average American.
Right.
And so,
right.
Clearly there's no hunting going on here, and that's what they're trying to suggest.
And so, in other words, all of this is contrived. This is contrived. Yeah. And the reason it's contrived is to serve as a distraction from all of the other misery that the White House is actually responsible for. So the reason Karine Jean-Pierre gets up there and she insists that we all need to mark the Trans Day of Remembrance is because she doesn't want us doing an American Day of Remembrance. The last thing she wants us to do is take an inventory of our memories about how badly the Biden administration has driven this country into the ditch.
Yeah, well, the White House danced around and never fully appreciated the 13 American service members who died in Afghanistan. And that's, that tells you everything you need to know. These are people who, died in the service of our country and died because Joe Biden's incompetent, and they ignore that. And then they hype up something that, yes, is a bad thing, but, let's face it, it's just, problem number 1,650 that we should worry about on this particular day.
Yeah. I don't remember the fentanyl day of remembrance. I missed that one. 100,000 Americans die. No mention of that. 26 people, including an attempted murderer, die. And, we get a whole thing. It's amazing. So back to Biden's age, if I can, with you, David Strom. The White House claims that the people around Biden claim that they're going to employ something the New York Times is referring to as a bubble wrap strategy for him for the next 12 months. They're going to encase him. I swear to you, this is from the New York Times. Their strategy is to encase him in bubble wrap for the next 12 months to make sure he does not trip and fall. What is this campaign going to look like, David?
Well, I think they're going to double down on the 2020 strategy. And, this is one of the dangers, I think, of a Donald Trump candidacy is they are going to be able to make this 100% about Donald Trump. That's their goal. The question is, if you have a referendum on Donald Trump, is that, better or worse than having a referendum on Joe Biden? And in general, if you make it about, the referendum about somebody in particular, the negatives tend to stick more on that person. It's just going to be very interesting to see how this plays out, but it's going to be, not the Rose Garden strategy, but the basement strategy.
Well, but, Republicans would have to be the most incompetent party ever not to take advantage of I hate to call it an opportunity because there's so much misery from it, but pointing out the direction of our country and who's responsible for it, they should all be grabbing an oar and moving in the same exact direction. After this Republican nominating contest settles itself out, we're looking at, one more debate at least. But in reality, Donald Trump has this massive lead right now, likely to become the nominee. So as a result, do you think Republicans are even capable of this, just getting on the same page and pointing out how awful Biden and his fellow Democrats have been for the country?
Well, I think the polling indicates that, let's just call it a target-rich environment. The American public has made its, more than a preliminary judgment about Joe Biden. I mean, they strongly believe that he's not up to the job. So it's really, going to be who do you, distrust more or hate more. And, I think that if the nominee is Trump, he's likely to win. If the nominee is another Republican, they're almost certain to win. Which brings up the question, is it actually going to be Joe Biden who is the nominee, or are they going to find a way to shuffle him off? I mean, that's very difficult if he doesn't want to go. I think people overestimate the ability of the establishment, which I think already wants him gone, to make him do that. But if they can convince him, I think that you're going to see a big fight between Gavin Newsom and Kamala Harris.
Finally, it does seem to me, and this is just speculation on my part, but the person that they have to convince is not Joe, it's Jill. I feel like Jill's really the driving force here. She relishes this, wants to stay in this, perhaps sees it as a way to protect her family. I don't know, keep the income coming in, protect Hunter from any more scrutiny. There's something going on here, but Jill seems like the one that they have to convince.
Well, I mean, she's clearly got something of an inferiority complex. Both of them do. I mean, both of them, she isn't just Jill Biden. She's Dr. Jill Biden.
Yes.
Which is just absurd. And Joe keeps on talking about how much smarter he is than everyone else. And people who do that are compensating. And being the first lady is a big deal.
Yes.
So I think you're right that she enjoys it. And, she gets to sort of be a co-president, although I suspect that the real president here is Barack Obama.
Yeah. All right. Well, a man who's never called himself doctor and never says that he's smarter than everyone else, but he is a lot smarter than most people. David Strom, thank you very much from Hot Air. Great to talk to you, sir. I mentioned Circle Backy Jen Psaki a few minutes ago. You remember Congressman Dan Goldman, that awful human being? He was on with Jen Psaki this weekend.
His rhetoric is really getting dangerous, more and more dangerous. And we saw what happened on January 6th when he uses inflammatory rhetoric now, and his recent Truth Social post is incredibly, incredibly scary for anyone that might be trying to work in government. And it is just unquestionable at this point that man cannot see public office again. He is not only unfit, he is destructive to our democracy, and he has to be eliminated.
Oh, I see. See, that's the way we save our democracy, by eliminating our political opponents. That's the way the left talks. They really believe it. Dan Goldman, Jen Psaki, speaking where they thought no one could hear them, but we recorded it and shared it with you. The great one, Mark Levin, up next here on WMAL.
Hi, it's Jonathan Cotton with the Good Feet Store, and it's that time of year when we pause for a bit and reflect on our true blessings. Do you know what I consider to be one of the greatest blessings as a business owner? My employees and coworkers. We have people from many different backgrounds and walks of life, and they make my job incredibly rewarding. I truly enjoy getting to know and work with each one of them. Better yet, our customers rave about their experiences with them. If you want to meet some exceptional people to help you with your foot, knee, hip, or back pain, then visit us at the Good Feet Store and see for yourself. For over 25 years, Good Feet Arch Supports have been helping to improve the quality of people's lives, and we'd love the chance to do the same for you. Stop by the Good Feet Store and let one of our arch support specialists give you a free fitting and test walk. The Good Feet Store has locations across Greater D.C. and Baltimore. Visit goodfeet.com to book your appointment today, or just stop by. I'm Jonathan Cotton, and we look forward to seeing you at the Good Feet Store.